you're listening to Food Rebels, and I'm your host, AJ Sharp. You know me, I'm the person who comes on and talks to you about the best food brands, stories, companies, really celebrating people who have challenged the status quo. This week on the show, we're talking to a very special chef called John Watts, whose life was transformed after taking part in the Duke of Edinburgh awards scheme after serving, is it 6.5 years in prison?
6.5 year sentence, yeah.
That's amazing. Welcome, John. Really pleased to have you on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And you've since become this incredible chef.
Thank you. It's always nice to hear other people sort of call you special and incredible.
So should we start like a little bit further back? And can I ask you a little bit about the Duke of Edinburgh scheme? I don't know very much about it. I think it was something that was offered at school. So was this something you did in prison or when you left?
In prison. So I was the first person, and I think the only person to date, to do the bronze, silver and gold in custody. A lot of that was down to luck and timing and people and things like that. But, you know, it's quite a special achievement. I did know about it at school, but I think it wasn't really the cool thing to do, was it? You know, there's that famous in-betweeners scene talking about the Duke of Edinburgh award. Do you know what I'm talking
with
about?
briefcase guy.
Yeah. I think that's the sort of reputation it had. So
what was involved? Because it's mega, isn't it? If you get the gold, you actually get to do all sorts of amazing things with it, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's just an achievement. It's just something to sort of say, you know, you've been dedicated to something. The cool thing about the gold is going to the palace and getting your sort of certificate. I think it's just, I don't know, really. It's just that sense of achievement, knowing that you've achieved it. I mean, it doesn't really unlock any other doors, but I think once you've sort of been through the process, I suppose you've just unlocked a lot of things in yourself, if that makes sense. So like boosts your confidence, your self-esteem, and builds resilience. I think that's something that's been quite important in my life. So it's all those little things that add up that just help build you as a person. So whereas, you know, it's not like a degree where you come out and you've got a qualification where you can, you know, maybe walk into a job and then build a career, but it's something that builds you as a person, and you can use it in whichever way you want, I suppose.
And I think there's a mentality behind there, isn't there? I mean, I only did bronze, but is there like a service element, there's a skill element, and I'm going to call it adventure element because I can't remember what it is, but you have to go and sleep out on a hillside or something.
Yeah. How long ago did you do it?
A long time ago. I'm very young, but a long time ago.
Well, there's the 4 sections. So skill, expedition, volunteering and physical. So you basically, you know, for physical, what I was doing was going to the gym, playing football, and I'd have to record that I was doing it. And, you know, at a young age, that was fine. Volunteering, I was a listener in the prison, which is basically, you know what the Samaritans are, the charity?
Yep.
So they go into prisons and they train prisoners to essentially be Samaritans in the prison. So you're there for someone they'd call it a call, but it would basically be an officer would come and say, such and such is called for a listener. Can you go into this room and listen to them? And that was great. That sort of, at a young age, gave me a sort of sense of responsibility where I had to hear all sorts of things, but then also not tell anyone, you know, keep it confidential. And I think at only 18 years old, having that responsibility was quite a big thing.
And huge to realise everyone's struggling. You know, everyone's got different struggles and different things going on inside their head. I think that's quite, especially at 18, you sometimes can think you're alone, you're the only person.
Absolutely.
And actually, I imagine there's like tough guys in there and they're wanting to talk about things. Yeah,
I think what I learned was that all problems are relative to the person and what they're going through at the time. So sometimes it would be something just like missing a girlfriend, and other times it would be someone is literally telling me they're going to kill themselves that night. So you realise that it's a sliding scale, like everyone's problems are all relative. Like you can't just say that's bigger than that problem, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
But I think doing that sort of taught me empathy. I don't know if you can learn empathy, but it just made me sort of look at people and the world a little bit differently, especially to what I did beforehand. So that was really quite eye-opening and helped build me up a little bit, I think. There was the expedition, like you say, you get out in the mountains and stuff. Obviously, I couldn't do that in
I was going to
prison.
say, how did that work? So
for the bronze, they created something called the Jailers Challenge, and it was like team building all around the jail. And then we did have a camp out on the football pitch, but it wasn't exactly luxurious. It was freezing cold. A cell is not a nice place to be, but at the same time, it still is your home. So to be away from those small little comforts that you did have, it was like, hang on, this isn't exactly better just being in a tent locked up in a football pitch. But then for the silver and gold, I was able to get out, like released temporarily. So I ended up on a resettlement unit where a bit like an open prison, kind of, where you can go out to work and stuff. So I was able to go and do the expeditions then. So I went into the Brecon Beacons, and sorry, that was for the gold, and then for the silver I went into the Chilterns, which was nearby where I was. So I did actually get out in the mountains, did the whole camping side of things.
That must have been amazing.
Oh, it was incredible, and it sort of unlocked my sort of love for the mountains and for nature. So now I love it. Like I've been on sort of a couple of solo trips to the Atlas Mountains. I went and climbed Kilimanjaro. I love getting into Wales or Scotland or the Lake District. Just love that sort of feeling of being outside in raw nature, and it all comes from having to do it all those years ago.
And what a place to go when I'm imagining, even if you're in an open prison, your freedom was still very much restricted. But then suddenly you've got 2 or 3 days on the Brecon Beacons, probably looking at Pen y Fan or Condou or where, those beautiful mountains.
Even though we did get that sort of freedom to go out into the mountains, we were with officers.
Yeah.
And then like I was going out to work at that time as well, but it would be like you're locked in the unit, so you have a bit more freedom than the other inmates because you have your own little kitchen, you can go to shower whenever you want, but you're still locked in the unit. Then I'd get let out for work 15 minutes before I had to be there, so I'd have to go there. I think someone there would then call and say he's here. You'd be there at work, then you're leaving again. So you actually don't have the same freedom as like just walking out from your house and going to work. And then when we were doing the mountains, the officers were with us the whole time. It's not like they had to look over us. Like we'd gone through all the tests and everything. We'd gone through all the interviews to be allowed out, and we're coming to the end of our sentences and all that sort of thing. But they were still there to, I suppose, oversee it in case. Because if something did go wrong in something like that, there'd be controversy, wouldn't there?
But it's brilliant. It's not a cold turkey situation, though, isn't it? It's brilliant that actually you're being allowed freedoms within the confines, actually being supported, because this is as much about support as anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's that sort of debate about prison and whether it should be rehabilitation or punishment. And, I personally, I think it should be a mix of both. The punishment side is that you're away from family. You don't have that freedom, amongst other things. There's a lot of punishment that goes with it. It's really a miserable place. But at the same time, it's better for the whole of society if you are building people up and getting them out there to
rehabilitating properly, actually helping people to take a different course. I think it's absolutely crucial, seems to me.
It's like a ripple effect as well. Like I tried to help out where I can. Last year I took on a lad from probation. He was sort of cooking with me. And I think a lot of inmates, a lot of people that go into the prison system and come out, often they always want to help. And I think that just is better for society when you've got those people who can reach these sort of young people that go through that sort of thing, who don't want to listen to the people at school or their parents, but they will listen to someone who's been in prison and gone through things, where they essentially look up to these people.
Actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's the second chance, isn't it? It's the genuinely supporting. So the last part of that was skill, was it?
Yeah.
And that was the cooking?
Yeah, so obviously, I left that one till last because that's the big one. That's the sort of main one. To be honest, I got a job in the prison kitchen just because it was the highest paid job, £12 a week. And in prison, you need money for you get the basics. So when you first go in, you get prison issue stuff. So you get prison issue toothpaste, and it's like a paste, a flavourless paste. It doesn't feel like you're really brushing your teeth. You get the prison issue clothing. You get prison issue bedding. I think this is something people don't realise. They think sometimes prison is cushy and you get nice comforts. My first few months in the prison, I had basically a curtain as a bed sheet. The window was stuck open, so it was like a mesh over a window, not like bars like you think in the movies. And the window was stuck open, and no one would fix it. It was January 2008, and it was absolutely freezing. So I'm there in all the prison issue clothing, the prison issue bedding, which, like I said, it's like a curtain. And it was just the most horrible. It was almost torture. But you have to build up privileges. So you have to, by being well behaved, you get moved up. Then you can buy your own bedding. It's not like they'll give you a duvet. You then have to be able to buy it, whether that's by earning money or getting it sent in from family or friends. So it's
so you can't just have your family and friends send you a whole massive care box of stuff. You'd have to earn the right to get that.
You have to earn that right to get to that point. Yeah. So you have to earn money. So £12 a week was
£12 a week. Wow.
And the funny thing is with prison, I was talking to someone about this the other day, like the cost of living does affect the prison as well. So I don't know what the wages are there now, but you know, £12 goes as far as it does for someone out in the street as well,
Right.
or out in normal life. So yeah, when you're wanting to buy like extra food and things, because you're only being given the food that you're given on the plate. Like you're not going up and serving yourself a bit of food. You're being given that food, and often, you know, especially when you're younger, you know, at that sort of age, you're going to the gym and stuff like that. You want to eat more.
Starving.
So for me, it was just get in the kitchen, be able to eat as much food as I can, and earn the £12 a week so I can buy the other little comforts. So when it came to picking a skill section, it was just a no-brainer to be like, okay, let's pick
Seems
cooking.
like a good idea. Yeah.
It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I could never find an interest in cooking by cooking in that kitchen because you're not actually cooking, really.
Yeah. What's it like? What's food like?
Do you know, considering the budget, I actually don't think it's that bad. But it's just like mass-produced stuff. So you've got these great big brat pans, like the size of sort of a kitchen island, and there's big paddles, like as if you're going to go kayaking, and you're just sort of chucking in loads of probably horse meat. I don't know what it was. Loads of really cheap frozen meat, chucking in the tomatoes and stuff. So yeah, the food there was, I don't know if you can really call it food. To be honest, I didn't really know what good food was then. Like I'm not like any other chef that, you know, their mum cooked or their grandma did the best food ever. Like that's not me. I grew up as food is fuel. Food was on the table and you eat it and that's it. Like I didn't ever get excited about food. But at that point it was just, okay, pick cooking as a skill. That's the obvious thing to do. That then led on to getting a job in the officers' mess, which is like a canteen cooking for all the prison staff. There you do a little bit more cooking. It still wasn't great food, but it was
Maybe more
like,
seasoning options, I'm feeling.
yeah, and you're making like pies and omelets and an apple crumble, just things like that. And up there you could work towards your MVQ. So then I was actually getting a skill that could be used afterwards. So that was good. And I did enjoy it when I was there. Still didn't think, oh, this is what I want to do forever. But I did go at it at that angle of like, I need a job when I get out. This is going to be like one of my only chances. So just work at it. I feel like I had a natural talent when it came to cooking.
Yeah.
But that was it. Anyway, fast forward like to about 10 months before my release. And I got a job in Jamie Oliver's restaurant.
Which one was that?
So we were trying to get into 15 because he used to take on these people that were in these sort of situations and train them up. They wouldn't take me on because I was already in custody. So I was going to be going out from prison, going back in again at night time.
And they couldn't do that.
They couldn't do that.
You had to be
15.
out and clear.
Yeah.
Right.
So they said they are opening the Italian restaurants, and there was one opening in the place where I was. So it was literally like a 10 or 15
And where
minute
were you
walk away.
based?
Reading.
Okay.
About a 10-minute walk from the restaurant.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So I got the job there, and I reckon it was the first day. I remember just being there, seeing all the other chefs, or not even the chef, it was everybody. Everyone was just so passionate. They loved what they were doing. I was seeing ingredients I'd never seen before and just like smelling herbs. I just remember walking into the fridge. I hadn't actually seen fresh herbs before that point. They did used to get in some sort of stuff, like some ingredients into the prison that we could sort of work with. Like I remember a whole salmon coming in, but never fresh herbs. So when I went in the fridge, I was like, wow, oh, this is parsley. Oh, this is dill. This is mint. Because, you know, I'd only seen them in the dried form.
Yeah. And had you come in then, like right at the bottom of the pack? You know, you've got somebody mentoring you and teaching you at that point.
At that point, so I'd done the MVQ, I'd finished it. So I'd had this qualification, but in reality, it's all just
how did
paper.
that relate to other people in there? Were there similar people who had similar backgrounds, or
No.
all across the board?
I was sort of like almost like hidden in the back, actually, because it was a very busy restaurant back then. And I think they just sort of hid me in the back. And Ian, the head chef who came in and basically took me out and gave me the job, he was very much a mentor. So he'd be having his busy job, but then I don't know, just give me that few minutes each day to sort of...
This is why I'm doing this or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I started off just making pasta on a big machine and making focaccia. And that was it for quite a few months. And then he just sort of gradually sort of got me into all the other different sections, showed me all the other things that were going on. But yeah, going back to that first day when I saw the herbs and the vegetables and that passion and the adrenaline, I think that's where it was, where I was like, oh, wow, I actually love this. And I grew to love it even more every day.
I think having that, somebody sitting you to one side and being like, this is dill and it's amazing on this because of this. Even
Yeah.
I love it where someone's going, this is a good dill and this is a bad dill. We're not buying this one anymore because of such and such. And suddenly you're like, wow, the difference of these two dills is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's where the passion starts to come in, where you then are excited to try other, herbs of the same type to taste the really good one because you now know.
Just seeing the quality of ingredients. I think tomatoes is a good one because if you just get a pack of cherry tomatoes from
anemic
the supermarket,
tomatoes.
and they're often very bland. They're quite hard, sometimes a bit sour. And then you get some nice tomatoes from Italy, somewhere where the sun shines, and they're the most gorgeous, like juicy.
Or Isle of Wight tomatoes.
Isle of Wight tomatoes, of course. So it just makes all the difference, the different ingredients that you're using. So I suppose seeing that was just incredible.
So how long did you work at 15?
Not 15. So Jamie's restaurant, I was there for.
Jamie's restaurant.
It was
Italian.
It was Jamie's Italian, which it doesn't got the best reputation. When I started there, it was quite new. There was only a handful of restaurants, only a couple, I think. All the food was made fresh, so I was seeing everything being made. But I did work there for must have been 5 years, and I did see it get bigger, expand massively, and then suddenly they weren't really making all the food. It was getting a lot of bad reviews, and it did go bust quite quick, which is it's sad because it was a great high street restaurant.
Did he franchise it or something?
Franchised it internationally, which I think they're all still going actually. He's opening a new restaurant in London. I saw it yesterday in Covent Garden. It's not open yet, but I think it's opening soon.
I like Jamie Oliver.
I like Jamie Oliver as well. I think he's changed the game a lot, hasn't he?
I think he's always trying to do the right thing. It all feels to me like it's coming from the right place.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just think his cooking is good as well. I think he sort of changed it a little bit with his home cooking back in the day. He's a bit of a pioneer in that sense.
Yeah. For me, he was extraordinary at that time because I was learning to cook with my mother and Mary Berry and Delia Smith, and they were teaching me to cook. And then he's on the TV going, chuck it all in, love. And you're like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Just a dash of this. Don't worry about measuring it, which for me, that's the kind of cook I am.
Yeah.
I haven't got creme fraiche, never mind. Chuck some yogurt in and be all right.
Yeah.
Never mind. And that was his way, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just makes cooking accessible, doesn't it? And I think that's the beautiful thing about it.
It gives people confidence. Just chop it up, chuck it in, and be fine. What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
So from there, you've gone on to do some really exciting things since then, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah.
What happened after Jamie's Italian?
So when I left prison and I was working in a restaurant and I was working a lot of hours, but then I'd had like spare days and I didn't really know what to do with it. It's a funny time. Like I did say to someone recently, like leaving prison was worse than going in because it's like the loneliest time. You're around all these people, you build relationships with people in there.
Right.
And then
They're
suddenly
like
you're
family.
out in the big wide world. And yeah, it's just, don't know, quite a lonely place. Like I'd moved away from all my old friends and family for like good reason. But yeah, didn't really have a lot outside of work. So I used to just email restaurants and I'd go and try out new places. And it was great. I was learning all sorts of stuff. But then a couple of years later when it came to, I knew I wanted to leave for the reasons I said. The food wasn't being made as it was and it had changed. It had expanded too big. And I just couldn't find anywhere where I felt like I fitted in. I tried out all these different restaurants and I was like, like they're doing good stuff, but it's not really me. It's not really the route I want to go down. And so I just started up on my own. Literally one day I was just like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just like, I'm going to go on my own. People have asked me to do dinner parties before. So
as a like private chef.
Yeah. So I was like, I'll do that.
Wicked.
And I stuck my details on this website and it's a bit like a Yellow Pages for private chefs. It doesn't exist anymore, but yeah, it was good. I ended up getting a few clients and it was word of mouth and I was busy most weekends quite quickly. But then I was still doing, and the good thing about hospitality is there's always work other than 2020, which was another story. There's always work, so you can take agency work and sort of fill your time and make money that way. So I was doing a lot of that, but then I was like, I want to actually be independent, work just for myself. So I took out a loan and bought a food truck, and then that was like the other thing I was doing, and that was great. I was just doing bigger events then, so it wasn't just dinner parties, it was bigger events, either with or without the food truck. I was selling food on the high street.
What kind of food were you selling from the truck?
It was called John's Street Food.
Love
and
it.
Strut Eat, as in, I clearly love a pun given the name of the book. I actually hate puns, that's the funny thing. John's Strut Eat Food. And I was doing pulled pork, pulled chicken, firecracker brisket, falafels, like homemade falafels,
Amazing.
and then a bunch of different salads. And it was really popular. The funny thing was, I was just doing the falafel as like a veggie version to keep a couple of people happy. They ended up over time, I had always the same customers coming, and they'd have the chicken, have the beef, have the pork. They'd do that, rotate it quite a few times. Oh, go on then, I'll try the falafel. And eventually at the end, I was just selling falafel.
No, you're joking.
They were so good because I was like making it fresh and then deep frying it to order. So you got these hot, a lot of people haven't tried like a fresh falafel.
Actually, a good falafel.
They're completely different to your supermarket falafel, which is
with some like hummus
dry,
in a like wrap or something.
I was just doing it in a box with salads actually. And the salads was, I mixed it up a bit, but I used to do like a frigola. It's like giant couscous. If you've seen that, like imagine small bits of pasta I used to do it with pesto and then some different vegetables. What else did I do? Smoky couscous, coleslaw.
You're making my mouth water. It's so delicious.
I used to mix it up. I was known for quite a while for my salads, because then I was doing events and stuff. I was just like putting out an array of different salads, of filling up, with different colours and ingredients and different textures, and all sorts of different things were going on. And I think that's what I became known for quite a bit. So people were hiring me to do their parties and barbecues, and they were just after the salads.
That's brilliant.
So
I love salads. It's it's my favourite thing to be asked to do. Bring a salad. I love to. It'll have cheese in it.
Yeah, you can be really creative, can't you?
Yeah, it's the best. What was the link to X Factor? What happened there?
So the food truck was actually a nightmare. I think I learned great lessons with it, and it was good fun a lot of the time. And I'd always had a queue of people, but things would always go wrong, whether it was with the car when I was towing it, or the pipe would burst in the truck, or the weather. You spend all this time getting this food ready, and then it's raining and people aren't out. And it was an absolute nightmare. It wasn't as easy. People used to see me out for like 3 hours at lunchtime and think, 3 hours and he's gone, like he's got an easy day. Oh my God, the work around it was horrendous. I was busy all day from like 6 a.m. to like 2 a.m, just getting this stuff ready. And so it's just a nightmare. Anyway, it did lead on to some good things. So someone who used to come to my food truck knew someone someone high up at the X Factor, and basically asked me to do the food in the X Factor house. So this was during the winter when trade would dip anyway. So I was in the X Factor house for 3 months cooking for them. Yeah, it was just so surreal. I think that was the first sort of real time that I saw behind the scenes of television. I've seen quite a bit of it now, but it's just fascinating watching that unfold. Like such a big show as well. So where you see it on TV, and then I'm also seeing the behind the scenes, and
you're like, it wasn't like that in real life, but they've made it sound really jazzy.
It was. I can't watch TV the same since that. It's so staged. Like the personalities of the contestants and everything was just so manufactured.
Yeah, because nobody's that black and white, right? Like nobody's all bad, nobody's all good, nobody's always, outrageous. And then you see the edit, and they only ever pick the outrageous moments from that person.
Yeah.
Until you just think they're a caricature of a person.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really fascinating. But good fun, cooking for, what's her name? Nicole Scherzinger. That was fun.
Yeah.
Because occasionally the judges would come in. I didn't get really close and personal with them at all, but she was lovely. She used to come in and she was just friendly, ask for tomato bruschetta. She had quite a lot. So that was good.
So you're not best mates with Simon Cowner?
No. Oh, no. He was the only one. He never came in, actually.
Never came in?
No. Sharon Osbourne, Louis Walsh, Nicole Scherzinger. Never actually saw Simon. Too busy, probably.
But you've brought in a cookbook, haven't you?
Yeah.
It looks amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Do you know what? A cookbook's something that I've wanted to do for years and years. Like, it's always been one big goal, but I never knew how it would happen. And it was the pandemic happening that sort of drove me to share recipes online, which has then grown into this sort of small
Was that the basis
now.
of it?
Sorry?
Was that the basis then? So over lockdown, you're writing recipes, and then are these the same recipes?
Oh, yeah. So, well, it's sort of, I did do some that are just exclusive to the book, but a lot of the recipes in there are ones that were popular on social media over the last almost 4 years now. It's a little tribute to my nephew.
Is that your nephew? Oh.
Yeah, so he had brain cancer and he passed away at 2.5, so I dedicated the book to him. I mean, the book probably would have been out a lot earlier if it wasn't for him getting ill, actually. So I think that's why the book feels extra special, because I've just sort of gone through this personal journey over the last few years where it's led up to almost happening. It's a really long story, but the book almost happened. And then I sort of took it upon myself this year to make it happen, which I'm quite So I'm really proud of this book being there, being a thing now.
It's a huge thing to put together any book, but I think particularly having been on the supporting edges of people putting together cookery books, it's not just the photography, it's not just the recipes, it's not just the tasting and the testing and the storytelling. There's so many different elements that actually it's almost like writing 3 books in one, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a photography book and a recipe book. You forget how much testing goes into each of these different recipes, and not you, obviously, you've done it, but for us at home, it's full on, isn't it?
It's the most full on thing, yeah. Especially with this book. So this one was done with a small publisher, so I had hands on sort of, because I know with a lot of the big publishers, there's a prop stylist, there's a food stylist, there's a photographer and all that sort of thing. With me, it was just me and a photographer locked in an Airbnb room.
Wow.
Creating recipes all day long for the photos I'm talking about. And it was so
just
tough.
You and a photographer?
All day long.
Stylist? Art director?
There was no.
Props girl?
No. The photographer's wife was there to sort of help out with that thing, but then she got ill and she wasn't there, so it was just me and him.
Washer-upper?
Sorry?
Washer-upper?
No.
Oh
so for me, it was so intense. I didn't realise that actually a lot of chefs that write a cookbook, they don't actually cook the food themselves. I didn't realise that.
No, I don't think
this
so.
year. And
normally a food stylist or kitchen economist or something, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've made every single recipe in that book. I ordered all the food for it. So every day was I was actually still finishing off some of the recipes as we were doing the photos. So I'd be finishing recipes in the evening, ordering the food would come, I'd be prepping food in the evening, getting up early, prepping it. The photographer would come, it'd shut off all the blinds, so we're in a dark room. I'll be in this tiny kitchen just cooking these dishes. It almost put me off cooking for about a day. I had to take a day off at the end and just be like, right.
I can see that completely, but the photography is beautiful. Yeah,
there was a lot of time taken by him and me to make every dish look good. And I think what I like about those photos as well, I'll tell you what I like about the book is that it's got the way it's laid out with photo recipe.
Me too. I love to see what I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And it all follows the same formula. And sometimes recipe books have been turned into a picture book that looks so beautiful, but you're like, this is not practical.
Yeah, I think because when you're doing the sort of food styling, it looks like art, but it doesn't look like something you're going to create at home.
Right.
And I think what I like about that is what you're seeing is what you're going to make.
Yeah. For me, it's the kind of book I would buy and use because you can follow it really easily, and it's in the right order. Start with the ingredients, then there's the method, and try and dish it up so it looks like this.
Simple and straightforward, and that's what I've gone for with my recipes when I'm doing a video online as well. And that's what the sort of feedback has always been, is it's simple, straightforward, and people can make it. And I think you get the same thing with the book, so I'm quite happy it's translated that way. Yeah,
it looks really appetizing, really does. Absolutely delicious. Thank you so much for coming in, sharing your story, John. It's been really great meeting you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So inspiring. You've been listening to Food Rebels, which is available on radio stations around the UK. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible. Please remember to subscribe. And my producer asked me to rate us with 5 stars, please. It makes a huge difference to our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you taste the rebellion.